Well, Redo of Healer has always been special on its own, right? It shook the entire industry, especially when the infamous episode 2 aired. Whoever produced this said, nope, we're gonna do what we want and we don't care what you think. So when episode 2 released, it got mixed reactions. It was criticized, hyped, but most of all, there were a lot of memes. Redo of Healer is all about Kearu, who is one of those rare heroes that specializes in healing. He was a great asset, and it seemed like everything was going well for him. But things aren't always like a fairy tale. Kearu was not only tortured, but he was abused. He had to suffer through all of this until one day he had his chance. He rewound time and is now on a journey to get revenge on everyone that he hated. So follow me as we go in depth and satisfy that weird taste of yours with 15 plus anime like Redo of Healer. I mean, come on, we all know why you search for anime like Redo of Healer, don't we now? And at number 16 we have Tower of God. Bam lived a pretty dull life. He had no one to rely on and was pretty much alone in a dark cave. He was trapped and hardly saw the light. To define it in one word, his life was miserable. Until a certain someone appeared. That was Rachel. But why does everyone hate this little blonde gremlin? Rachel and Bam became best friends and she was the first person Bam ever relied on. However, Rachel leaves to go to the Tower of God, a tower that can fulfill the wishes and desires of people. Bam follows her, and his presence changes everything inside the Tower of God. The similarities Tower of God has with Redo of Healer is basically how the MCs have lives that have no meaning. Both shows even have the classic OPMC, who were underestimated, complemented with fantasy elements. And at number 15 we have Tokyo Ghoul. I know everybody's heard of Tokyo Ghoul, but what similarities does it have with Redo of Healer? Well, first of all, we can't deny the fact that both MCs have suffered a lot. Then there's a usual transformation of being a naive kid to a literal killing machine. Both Kearu and Ken went through some pretty harsh stuff to get to the place they are now, and it warped their personality. The story is set in a world where there are ghouls and humans. Ghouls feed on humans to survive, and one such ghoul was Rize. She was on a date with Ken Kaneki when she decided that Ken was on the menu for tonight's dinner. Dang. However, things didn't go as planned as she was killed. Talk about a killer date. Am I right? Okay, sorry for that. Sorry for that dad joke. This incident turned Ken into a half ghoul during an organ transplant between him and Rize. His life took a 180 turn in a blink of an eye. He is now a bridge between humanity and ghouls, and both sides see him as the monster. And at number 14 we have Attack on Titan, which is set in a world where humanoid giants known as titans feed on humans. Right from the beginning, Eren's life became miserable after the death of his mother, who was eaten by a titan. To protect humanity from these titans, there are soldiers known as scouts, who venture outside the walls. After his mother's death, Eren, along with Mikasa and Armin, his friends, join the scouts. One thing leads to another and Eren is being eaten by a titan. But just like Kaneki, you become what eats you. And Eren becomes a titan himself, changing the world's history as they know it. Any billionaire out there that want to eat me? Same as Tokyo Ghoul, Attack on Titan's similarities with Redo of Healer mainly revolve around the MC's transformations. Both Eren, Kaneki, and Kearu became anti-heroes of sorts and lost the moral compasses that once guided them. At number 13 we have Puella Magi Madoka Magica. What if you're given a chance to fulfill a wish? This is the story of Puella Magi Madoka Magica. It's set in a world where only chosen girls get life-changing chances. Though it isn't that simple, because to fulfill your wish, you need to be a magical girl. Madoka is one among the many girls who were offered to be a magical girl. She's asked to fight off the witches soon after the contract is done. However, another girl named Homura tries her best to stop Madoka from making this deal. In reality, she was trying to save Madoka from the constant suffering and pain a magical girl has to face, because not everything is all sunshine and rainbows in the series. And if you think this is a comedy, feel-good anime, then you've never been more mistaken in your life. So what does this show about magical girls have in common with the infamous Redo of Healer? If you've watched this show, it's painfully obvious that it involves a lot of depressing topics. Both are dark fantasy shows where magic is the main premise of the series, and other than that, both shows aren't afraid to show the harsh realities of a fantasy world. At number 12 we have the world's finest assassin gets reincarnated in another world as an aristocrat. If it's got a long name, bound to be a good show, you know what I'm saying? And I dare you to say this title at home by yourself 5 times in a row. The similarities between World's Finest Assassin and Redo of Healer is firstly the mindset of the MCs, where they do everything not for the sake of the world, but for their own personal ambitions. Although World's Finest Assassin might not be as harsh as Redo of Healer, it still shows the viewers that in a fantasy world, you could get killed the moment you arrive. You know, this is for all those weebs at home wishing they end up in a fantasy world. The story revolves around one of the greatest assassins in the world. He was used as a tool and died living life as a tool. As we know, legends never die though. This assassin gets reincarnated in another world as an aristocrat, but assassination never left him behind. He gets a mission to kill the hero who will eventually destroy the world. His father trained him to become an aristocrat assassin. And oh boy, you haven't seen an assassin that can create a cannon out of thin air, have you? And at number 11, we have Dororo. Dororo focuses on the lives of two abandoned children named Hyakimaru and Dororo. Hyakimaru, the main protagonist, was thrown away in a river because he was born without body parts after his father made a trade offer with demons in exchange for his land's prosperity. This is the journey of Hyakimaru, who now has literal swords for limbs. Where every demon he kills, he gets back one part of his body. He is accompanied by Dororo, who was another orphan. These two misfits in society begin to rely on each other and find missing pieces of themselves along the way. Judging from the pilot, it's way better than Redo of Healer, and I guess you probably got a hint of their similarities. It's mainly focused on the MC's pain and how they were treated, as well as a classic revenge story. What Dororo had to do in 24 episodes, Kearu already did in episode 2 though. And number 10, we have Yonah of the Dawn. Yonah was a loved princess whose life was turned upside down when her lover, Su-woon, betrayed her. After her father's death, her friend the general and chief, Hak, takes her with him to protect her from Su-woon. However, Su-woon sent his forces after them. While on the run, Yonah vows to avenge her father's death and take back the throne. But before that, she had to be stronger. Along with Hak, she started her journey searching for the 4 dragons. Oh my god, is this our Khaleesi? These dragons were the founders of the country 1,000 years ago and are the keys to getting back everything she lost. You already know that it involves revenge, right? Just like Redo of Healer. There was also the part where they were betrayed by someone they trusted, just like Kearu. And Princess Flare, just like Kearu. And Princess Flare at the beginning of the series. That was messed up. But the differences end there, because Yonah didn't become a maniac like Kearu, and she didn't do it alone. And number 9, we have Made in Abyss. I know what popped up in your head, okay? This is a kid's show. Well, my beautiful weeb, if this was a test, you'd get an F, because Made in Abyss is anything but that. Okay, just like Redo of Healer, Made in Abyss gets dark. It may even get darker than Redo of Healer, to be honest. The MCs don't have a lot in common in terms of personality, but the depiction of the hardships they went through is like 2 sides of the same coin. So what really is Made in Abyss? The Abyss is a place where secrets lie, and people who dare to go down are considered the bravest among all. The story highlights the life of Riko, who was the daughter of one such adventurer. She dreams of being like her mother and vows to explore the abyss. Little did she know what lays deep down there are horrors beyond her imagination. The other reason behind her doing this was also her mother. She wanted to find her mother, or at least what was left of her. Riko's life was already at the palms of the abyss the moment she stepped foot into this hellhole. And number 8, we have Elfin Lyde. Every weeb watched Elfin Lyde during their edgy teenage phase. The world gets introduced to a new type of human called Diclonius. It is a species with a different appearance and ability than us. Being a Diclonius isn't natural, but it results from a virus. Lucy was the first Diclonius, the progenitor. However, Lucy was captured by humans who performed horrifying experiments on her, but she managed to escape. While doing so, she suffered a head injury and formed 2 separate personalities. There, she met 2 cousins who saved her life. Little did they know the consequences of this act of kindness. Just like Kearu, Lucy was more or less a human guinea pig for those that captured them. They went through so many traumatic experiences, but finally got a chance to get out. Both MCs even used their chance to get revenge. Lucy's like girl Kearu, but just not as crazy as Kearu. He's something else. And number 7, we have Black Butler. Seal's past was tragic and full of suffering. He lost everything: his family, his twin, and his humanity. Even remembering those moments made him lose control. To avenge the deaths of his family, he made a contract with a demon named Sebastian. The contract was made at the cost of Seal's soul. Sebastian will help Seal only if he sacrifices his soul for him at the end. They now roam the streets as Seal becomes the Queen's guard dog. Black Butler, Elfin Lyde, and Redo of Healer are basically triplets. The MC's treated like a slave. The MC's personalities get a turn for the worst, and then there's a revenge. Wow, why is everything so depressing, eh? I can't even imagine any of these anime having a beach episode. And number 6, we have Legend of the Legendary Heroes. Have you ever heard of a Netflix show that had the word legend twice in its title? Of course not, it's only an anime. Bye-bye. Just like Redo of Healer, Legend of the Legendary Heroes is a fantasy anime that revolves around the MC building a group to achieve their own ambitions. It's just that Reiner isn't a maniac that wants to brainwash people. The story focuses on Reiner, who has cursed eyes. Is it the Sharingan? Anyway, anyone who has these eyes is considered the harbinger of destruction. But Reiner has a good heart and is a greater mage. During a war, his friends passed away one by one, and he now vows to make his nation more peaceful. He sets on a journey to find relics once used by the legendary heroes to uncover the mystery behind his cursed eyes. At number 5, we have Stigma of the Wind. Kazuma Yagami was banished from his home and exiled. After years of being alone, he returned to his household only to be accused of murder. Several members of the family were killed, and Kazuma was a main perpetrator in everyone's eyes. Here, most elemental users use fire magic, while Kazuma is the only known wind user. The assassin used wind magic to kill the family members. Kazuma goes on a journey to find the real killer and clear his name. Kearu and Kazuma more or less shared the same experiences. They were treated as less than humans by their people and are looked down on by everyone. Yo, they even have the same pink-haired ally. It's just that Kearu's party is a little different. You know what I mean? Number 4, we have Arifurata. Imagine if you, along with your friends, were summoned to a new world one day. Then you're asked to save humanity with your powers, but the catch here, ladies and gents, is that everyone gets awesome abilities except you. This is the story of Hajime. Being deprived of a useful ability made him suffer a lot in the new world. He was humiliated and often made fun of by his classmates. It was to the extent that during a dungeon dive, he was betrayed by one of them and he fell into the abyss. As he was fighting tooth and nail to survive, he started growing stronger and stronger to the point where he became overpowered. First things first, betrayal. That's the main similarity Arifurata has with Redo of Healer. Same as the other entries, the MCs also undergo transformations that affect their personality, outlook on life, and their abilities. Hajime and Kearu were just kids, but it seemed like Lady Luck was just not on their side. And number 3, we have Berserk. You want a revenge story? A tough MC? Dark fantasy? Or what about really disturbing and gory scenes? Well, Berserk has that and more. Berserk and Redo of Healer don't see eye to eye in some aspects, especially the subtle lightheartedness of Redo of Healer. Imagine if Redo of Healer happened in real life. That would be Berserk. Get it? When talking about a tough life full of pain and suffering, no one can beat Guts. The struggles Guts had to go through would make anyone plunge into madness. His character is so iconic in both the anime and manga community that Kirito doesn't even deserve the nickname the Black Swordsman. We follow Guts' life. He was born and lives on the battlefield. He found love, companions, and even a role model, but all of that ended in a big tragedy. Berserk may have a lot of action, but it focuses on Guts, a warrior who only knows bloodshed, trying to find another purpose in life. And number 2, we have The Rising of the Heel Shiro. Oh, whoops, sorry. The Rising of the Shield Hero. You already know what these two anime have in common. Flare and Melty, the two most hated characters in anime. At least Flare had somewhat of a redemption arc. Melty is just hopeless, no matter what you do. Naofumi and Kearu also went through the same thing, except that Kearu's was more brutal than Naofumi's. Other than that, Shield Hero has a much lighter take on the fantasy world than Redo of Healer, where Naofumi actually wants to help people in need. In Rising of the Shield Hero is one of the 4 heroes who were summoned to the kingdom of Melromark, to fight against the wave of catastrophe. The other 3 heroes have the specialties using the spear, bow, and sword. People assume that the shield hero can do nothing, as he was just a shield. Naofumi was betrayed and thrown away by society, but little did they know that the shield hero was the only one that could save their world. And number 1, we have Goblin Slayer. Goblin Slayer follows a 15-year-old adventurous priestess and her party who set out on a mission in a world of monsters and magic. Women were disappearing in a village and they needed to find those responsible. The group gets ambushed, leaving no one alive except for her. The goblins start closing in, but luckily she's saved by a man clad in armor with his eyes glowing red. He was known as Goblin Slayer. and he wants to kill every last one of the green devils. What's his past? We don't know. And why does he hate goblins so much? We're at number 1, my ninjas, and it is without a doubt Goblin Slayer. If you love the grittiness of Redo of Healer, then this one is a match made in heaven for you. The dark fantasy aspects are what made it popular, just like Redo of Healer, and the atmosphere of both shows are as close as they can be. Goblin Slayer is one of the best dark fantasy anime out there, and one of the series that are just like Redo of Healer. All in all, guys, Redo of Healer is just something else. It might not be the show that's the best plot or animation, but it did get everyone's attention in its own way. So that's it, my ninjas. 15 plus anime just like Redo of Healer. Each one has their own special connection with the show, and they all have their unique traits. Once again, this is Quote the Anime. It's your boy Ernie Senpai. Subscribe and let me know if I missed any.